Right. Okay, we're now live. Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to this first meeting of the Housing Supervisory Board. The first meeting this council term. I am Councillor Rosemary Dartnell, chair of this committee. I'm just going to mention some housekeeping things about noise. Could I please ask you to make sure your mobile phones are switched off and ensure the volume on your laptop is muted. To ensure the members of this committee and any other invited speakers are properly heard by those in the room and online, please use a microphone when asked to speak. You just press the button on the right to turn it on and then the same button to turn it off. This is a public meeting. Sorry, it is not a public meeting. It's a meeting held in public. It's not a public meeting. I should also just say everyone's been put there because the big screens are not working. We've only got one screen that's live today, so we're sort of a little bit limited. I'm going to ask members of the committee please to introduce themselves. So could I start with the councillors, with Harry, please. Councillor Hancock Davies, please.
Hi, I'm Councillor Harry Hancock Davies and I represent Battlefield.
Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Hi, I'm Councillor Brian Evans and I represent St Martin's.
Thank you. Sorry.
Hello, I'm Councillor Mark Owen. I represent Oswestry South East.
Thank you. Mr. Ebbs.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Gregory Ebbs and I represent Whitchurch South.
Good evening.
Good afternoon. I'm Harry and I'm the councillor and I've been in quite a long time there. The Shropshire, the Ludlow South. Ludlow South.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Tandy.
Yeah, I'm Councillor John Tandy for Birdbrook in Shrewsbury.
Thank you. Councillor Waite.
I'm Councillor Waite for Ludlow East.
Thank you. And shall we start with you, Laura?
Hi, Laura Fisher. I'm Head of Housing, Resettlement, Independent Living at Shropshire Council. Speakers. Afternoon, I'm Laura Tyler. I'm Service Director for Commissioning.
Harpreet Rayett, Managing Director of Cornelvie Developments.
Hi, I'm Jenny Daisley, Strategic Housing and Commissioning Manager.
Shelley Davies, Committee Officer.
That's great. Thanks, everyone. I'm just going to, before we start the meeting formally, I'm just going to read through some information that will help committee members, because I'm very much aware that our committee now is made up of quite a lot of new councillors and also councillors who've not been on the board before. I've been on the board for 4 years, either as a committee member or as a sub. But I think there's quite a lot that you need to know and understand on the committee. So I'll just go through the purpose of the Housing Supervisory Board. It's a governance body, and it's not a decision-making body. So we don't make decisions really. Not really. We don't make decisions. It was established by the council to oversee and exercise specific shareholder functions in relation to the council-owned housing company, Cornelvie Developments Limited. I'll call it CDL for a bit of time saving. Its purpose is defined in the Housing Supervisory Board terms of reference. It includes delegated shareholder functions. So the council delegates certain shareholder responsibilities to this board. Governance and oversight. So the board ensures that CDL operates in line with the council's strategic objectives. Accountability and transparency. So CDL is required to report quarterly to the board on its operations, risks, internal audits and borrowing activities. So that's what we're doing today mainly. Expectations of Housing Supervisory Board members. So what's expected of us? Governance and oversight responsibility. So we are expected to exercise delegated shareholder functions on behalf of the council in relation to CDL, including reviewing and approving CDL's business plans and financial reports, monitoring performance and risk, including compliance with climate and housing policy objectives, ensuring CDL aligns with the Council's strategic aims, such as delivering affordable housing and supporting net zero targets. Meeting participation and preparation. So today and other meetings, you are required to attend quarterly meetings or more frequently should we need anything extra. Review agenda packs in advance, including exempt reports and public submissions. Use microphones and laptops appropriately during hybrid meetings to ensure accessibility for any remote participants, which you don't have today, but we do sometimes have that. We also, CDL provide us with one or maybe a little bit more opportunities to really deepen our knowledge of their activities and their work by attending away days that they put on during the year, which is usually one a year, Harpreet, isn't it? Which is a kind of deep dive into the work of Cornovi and how our CDL works with council officers to get the best housing outcomes for Shropshire residents. And I would highly recommend those to you if you can manage to attend, because you do really come out having learned an awful lot more about how housing works in Shropshire. Sure. Yes, it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be that, but it can be other things, can't it? Yeah. So conduct and public accountability. Members must adhere, you know this, I'm sure already. Members must adhere to the 7 principles of public life, the Nolan principles otherwise called, which include selflessness, acting solely in the public interest, integrity, avoiding obligations that could influence decisions, objectivity, making decisions based on merit and evidence, accountability, being answerable to the public and the council, and openness, so being transparent about decisions and actions. Does anyone have any questions about that or anything to add? Thank you. So now we will go on to can I ask if we've got any apologies for absence?
Councillor Nigel Lumby's given his apologies.
Thank you. And this is the point where I ask members if they have any disclosable pecuniary interests to declare. Councillor Tandy.
Yeah, in the exempt minutes, it mentions the Grange School and not my house backs onto the Grange School, so I'm just putting it down. It's not pecuniary interest, but I'm just putting it down that I live near that. On the back of it, it's back of my house.
I see. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the minutes, we've got 2 sets of minutes. We've got one set from the 20th of March, the last meeting before the election, and then the one on the 22nd of May, the very brief meeting we had in Council Chamber. So could I have, has everybody looked at the minutes? I know you can't comment on the accuracy. I can say that they're accurate because I was there, and they are an accurate record of what took place. So has anyone else got anything they want to say about the minutes for the 20th of March? Okay, could I have a proposer? Should I propose from the chair, Shelley, since I wasn't there, so I can't propose you. I'll propose because I was there. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you. And all those in favour, please show. It is fine to pass the minutes without having been present on the committee. Otherwise, we'd be stuck forever. Thank you. That's passed. And then the minutes of the 22nd of May, where everyone was present. Is everyone happy that that meeting was? Are you proposing, Beverly? Yeah. Thank you. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Tandy. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay. So as I said earlier, 4 years on this board, and we've never had a public question until the meeting just before the election, and we have a public question today as well. So hopefully this is a trend, and we'll be having more questions. So could I ask you? Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Does the cross-party board, with many new members, unanimously agree with and ideologically support Cornovi Developments Limited's declared role in supporting Shropshire Council reaching its net zero targets?
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. So I'm going to be, thank you for your question. You'll appreciate that this is the first meeting of this committee following the May elections. And I'm responding to you in my capacity as the newly elected chair of the committee, rather than on behalf of individual board members. Individual members may comment separately, but such a dialogue is not provided for in this setting, in this meeting. But you're free to contact members directly as you will. The Housing Supervisory Board is a politically balanced cross-party body established to exercise shareholder oversight of Cornova Developments Limited, Shropshire's wholly owned housing company. The board plays a critical governance role in reviewing and approving CDL's business plans, financial performance and alignment with council priorities, including environmental objectives. So I'm familiar with CDL's business plans, and these are going to be the work that we do on the committee, and the quarterly monitoring reports, which consistently demonstrate a commitment to supporting the council's environmental ambitions. CDL has delivered new housing, often at a higher specification than the current building regulations at the time of construction. Shropshire Council's environmental policy was agreed by Council in 2019 and reinforced in 2021. These policies remain in force, irrespective of the recent elections and subsequent changes in the political makeup of the council and of the board. Okay, thank you. Member question time. Do we have any member questions? We do not. Okay, item number 6, Cornova Developments Limited. It's an overview presentation presented by Managing Director Harpreet Rayat. Over to you, Harpreet. Thank you. Have you got it, Beverly? Yeah. It's come from Shelley, not from Harry. Yeah.
So, thank you.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks. Of course I am. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. If I start off by just giving a bit of an overview in terms of the presentation, we're going to just touch on the CDL journey so far, what we've achieved to date, what we're working on, and our pipeline as well. Some of the opportunities and challenges as well that we're facing as an organisation, and also the financial outturn for the organisation as well, some of the financial challenges and some of the returns we've made to the council. I'm also going to kind of touch on some of the governance arrangements as well for the organisation. So I think the first part for me is why CDL was set up, and there was 3 reasons why it was set up by the council. The first was the Localism Act, so councils aren't able to trade for profit unless they've got private companies set up. So as a result of that, to set up a housing company, one that would be trading, the council set up CDL. The second was to act as a regeneration company for the local authority. The local authority, like many organisations, yes, of course. Can you hear me okay? Is that better? Yeah. So, like Shropshire's like many local authorities, we've got pieces of land which have been, challenging to develop, and we've had to kind of use external funding to sometimes remediate those sites, pay for things like complex demolition, removal of asbestos as well. So CDL was set up as a company, one that would be purchasing land from the council, but also working with the council to secure external funding for regeneration purposes. And that's one of the main ethos of the organisation. And finally, market intervention. So there was a recognition that the market wasn't delivering all the types of houses that was required within Shropshire. So the council took a view of more of a kind of direct delivery model. Examples of that is, larger bungalows, for example, that aren't really being provided in the market, or maybe smaller type of properties. So we entered the market to fill a gap which wasn't being fulfilled completely by the private sector at this time. I'm going to move on to the next slide, which shows the kind of governance structure for CDL. So for CDL, there's 4 main elements. The ultimate decision sits with the local authority, the Shropshire Council. Then there's the delegations into the Housing Supervisory Board, which I'll explore in a bit more detail. And then there is the CDL board, which oversees the operational matters of the company. And finally, it's the CDL team, which does the delivery on behalf of the council. So in terms of the Housing Supervisory Board, for me, it's got 7 main areas. The first is approving the annual business plan for CDL. So if the annual business plan isn't approved or recommended for approval by the Housing Supervisory Board, we're not able to then potentially move forward with accessing funds and moving forward some of our existing commitments. The other is that the board appoint or remove board members on the CDL board. Also, it approves any CDL lettings policies as well. So when we entered the private rented sector, we came forward with a lettings policy, which was shaped and developed in partnership with the previous Housing Supervisory Board. It needs to approve any transactions over £1 million, which hasn't been identified within our business plan. So what we have done in the past is come forward with updated business plans mid-year if we've had circumstances that have changed, moved, and that has to be considered by the Housing Supervisory Board. We're not able to be active outside Shropshire Council's administration area. If we wanted to do that, we would need approval from the Housing Supervisory Board and potentially full council as well. We are a Shropshire-based company, and the work that we undertake, and you'll see this through some of the reports that we've developed, is very much around protecting the Shropshire pound by using contractors and subcontractors within Shropshire. Amendments to any remuneration policy, and again, making any amendments to the shareholder agreement. In terms of the CDL board, who oversee the operational matters for the organisation, I'm not going to kind of run through all of these points because you've got those on the presentation, but for me, there's a number of key ones. First of all, it sets plans and budgets and monitors progress. So the business plan will always go to our board in the first instance, and every quarter we send updates in relation to our business plan. It brings a critical view in the activities we're undertaking. So we've got a lot of experienced people within the kind of private sector, housing, finance background within the board, and also council nominees as well, made up of officers. And it ensures that we're meeting the delivery objectives and compliance with laws as well, with a real focus on things such as health and safety, compliance, and making sure that we're fulfilling the objectives of the local authority. And then the role of the CDL team, again, I'm not going to go over all the points there, but I think the big one for the CDL team is to develop and implement the company's business plan and corporate plan. It's to kind of take strategic, operational, day-to-day decisions to drive the business plan forward. For us, it's offering excellent customer services. It's around developing new products and build, rent and sell homes, which is the key kind of activity of the organisation, because ultimately we are a developer. Even though we're a regen developer, that's what our kind of key ethos is to move things forward at pace. I'm happy if anybody's got any questions at this point on those first slides. Please just jump in at any point if you've got any questions as I'm going through the presentation, because I appreciate you've had probably a lot of presentations recently as part of the induction process, so please jump in. In terms of the CDL board, we do have a vacancy for the chair. Derek, who was our previous chair, but sadly passed away earlier this year. So Chris is taking the role of vice chair, but stepped up into the chair position recently. Richard is a local developer who's been sitting on the board since the company was set up. Stuart has recently joined us as a co-optee for just under 12 months now, and he comes from a development finance experience. He's a finance director for a regional house builder. And in terms of council officers, Ian Sherms is currently sitting on the board, but potentially being replaced by one of his colleagues, and Tim Pritchard as well. And who represents the council at an officer level, Laura under her role as commissioning a strategic director, and myself as managing director. We do have quite a small team, but the main posts are, there's 5 main posts, and that's very much around delivery on site, the finances and the sales as well. And also, yes, and I was hoping, I was going to pick that up in the closed session, if that's okay, but that's very much a process that would be led by the council and the Housing Supervisory Board around your priorities of what that chair should look like.
Go ahead. Viv, can you put your microphone on, please? Thank you.
My voice was loud enough. It worries me that you don't have a chair, especially with the amount that you're talking about, £1 million, that we have to say to you, yes, that's all right to use that. That's what you're asking us, isn't it?
We approved actually a large amount through the business plan.
Yes.
Yes, it is, you know, it is a shame we don't have Derek with us anymore, unfortunately, but we are keen to appoint a new chair during the summer to take the business forward.
And can I just ask another question?
Of course.
Who says that these officers are the ones that you pick? Do you do that between all of you?
No, again, that's done by the Housing Supervisory Board. Right. So what has happened historically is that nominees have come from the council officers. Yeah. They've been brought to the Housing Supervisory Board, and the Housing Supervisory Board have made recommendations to approve people onto the board.
And what qualifications do they have to do that?
So with Tim, for instance, his background is regeneration and housing development. He's very much a property person. And that's why he was nominated. And one of the gaps that was identified as part of the board review we undertook about 18 months ago was we didn't have anybody who's kind of process driven with an IT kind of background, especially around some of our sales that we're trying to do in modernising the business practices. So it was recommended that somebody with an IT and business transformation background be brought onto the board. And that's Ian, was Ian, unfortunately, but we're looking to move on a new officer called David Baker, who is the head of automation and IT for the council.
Just one more question.
Of course.
Who, if anything goes wrong, is going to say, well, I take the book for this?
I think ultimately the responsibility will all sit with the council. It's a council-owned company. But obviously if something went wrong from a health and safety perspective, that would obviously sit with myself. If something went wrong financially, that would sit with myself and Ross, for instance. And that would kind of increase in terms of this additional risk, and that would sit ultimately with the council.
And what are the two laws? What do they bring to this table? So I know Laura Fisher. But not Laura. I have.
You know me a bit, don't you?
Yes.
Because you're our scrutiny committee, yeah. So my role is overseeing kind of the commissioning and contractual to make sure that CDL is delivering, as part, what the local authority wants it to be delivered. So it's looking at the strategy, it's looking at the business plans and making sure that they're aligned to what it is that we need in the future. So the commissioning function is very much looking at the here and the future and aligning all of our strategies, our service specifications, etc., to ensure that we get the best out of our services. So CDL and STAR are one of the areas that have come up to my role as a new focus.
With people, isn't it?
Yeah, so absolutely. So was all age commissioning, so very much on the social care side, still got that, but now I've got a wider remit across the local authority in terms of all of the commissioning and procurement contractual activity. So it's just ensuring that we're aligning all of that collectively and we're getting the best out of the services and the contracts that we've got. So that's very much my role. So working really closely with Harpreet, but really, I suppose, holding them to account as well for what they're doing. And then with the support of this board, this is what we'll be doing collectively as well to ensure delivery. Sense?
Yeah, and thank you.
That's answered all the questions I wanted to ask.
Thank you very much, Viv.
Well, for now, anyway.
Evidently. Would you mind turning your microphone off?
Yes, sorry.
They won't work otherwise. Did Councillor Hancock Davies, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Where do we obtain a copy, or can we obtain a copy of the lettings policy?
Yeah, we can circulate that after the meeting, if that's okay.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? Well, should we carry on, Harpreet?
Yeah, and I just wanted to outline the kind of organisational chart for CDL on the next slide. So it just gives you an idea of the delivery team, which is Mark, Simon and Matt. And we do rely very heavily on kind of external expertise, and myself, because I come from a development background. And then Roz, Emily and Debbie are very much kind of focused on sales while working with kind of sales agents. We have lost a number of members of staff recently, so we are looking to kind of recruit and build that team back up. But we've been very clear that one of the biggest costs for the organisation is the overhead. So we need to carefully manage the staff size and make sure that we are bringing people in at the right time and also at the right experience level, because some of the development sites we are working on are particularly complex, and we're looking forward to taking everybody out to show, councillors, some of the regen sites that we've been working on during the last few years. No, it's probably better to have the key. Yeah. We will send the key contact, so it'd probably be Simon, Mark, myself, Roz and Debbie. Yeah, we'll circulate the key contacts to make sure you're speaking to the right people and be clear in terms of delivery or pre-contract or finance, who the right individual is to speak with, but we will get that circulated after the meeting.
It makes my life.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no problem at all. And then this is the mission that was agreed by the council to create sustainable communities, meet housing need and improve access to housing for people of all ages. And these were our kind of 5 strategic objectives. The main ones for me was really around kind of high quality homes in Shropshire, exploring commercial opportunities, which we kind of pick up on the closed in the exclusion paper, and also looking at innovative housing solutions. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well as we kind of move through. Commercial.
Exploring commercial opportunities, that's selling the old stock of stuff that we've had on the council, because there are still 1 or 2 places in Ludlow that are empty.
I think for me, it's more about, rather than just looking at, I'll give you an example. If we've got a piece of land as a council and we have got neighbouring landowners, is there a way in which we can kind of work together to develop that piece of land and share some of the costs associated with developing that piece of land, such as shared access, as an example, equalisation agreement. So, we're sharing costs for drainage as another example. It's also kind of working with other partners to kind of unlock funds as well as kind of some of the external products that are available from lenders, which may allow us to develop different tenure of housing. So one of the things that we're about to launch is a help to own product. So we've been working with kind of private investors, IT companies, and also a nationwide lender. And what they're doing is that we're doing checks through our private rented sector stock. We're doing affordability checks, and then we're setting up an ISO to allow them to save for a deposit. And after 3 years, they're then able to purchase a property, and the mortgage rates and the actual costs are in line for the mortgage, less than or equal to what they're paying at the moment in relation to the private rented monthly payments. So what we're trying to do is identify different ways for people to get on the housing ladder, or different innovative products that will allow more people to access housing within Shropshire. So that's the type of thing I'm talking about in terms of commercial opportunities.
How do you find the people that you can help? Or do they approach you, or do you approach them, or is it coming to a board of some sort?
It's a mix, but the majority of people who kind of reach out to us are people we speak with. So if I give you an example, if I can give you an example, so within our private rented products we've recently launched, we went out and spoke to a number of people who've moved into our properties, and the question was asked, why are you renting rather than buying? And the answer was uniform around some of the challenges of getting a deposit. So that made us think, say, actually, is there something we could do slightly differently? And I've got links with various people, and that's how we developed that product. So a lot of it is around kind of, speaking with individuals, but a lot of it's learning from other local authorities and other organisations who are coming forward with different solutions to support communities.
So, I'm sorry, another question. So is this just your company, or could you go through connections with people that have part shared in some of the houses and would like to own their own houses?
No, only through our company, and it's to do with the financial structures. Connexus will have a very different financial structure, governance arrangements, different lending criteria to what Cornell V does.
Sorry, that's Tandy.
No, don't mind. Right, thanks. Right, you say you deliver excellent high quality homes in Shropshire. I like to see homes for life. Mm-hmm. And I think that homes for life are the way forward, where actually it starts off with one house, but by the time they get 60 and 70, they're still in that same home. It has a hoist in the roof, it has the downstairs cloakroom can be made into the shower room, has everything so they can have a home for life the rest of their life instead of having to keep on moving. Mm. Now, have we got any chance of starting to build those sort of houses, or do you think they're unaffordable?
So, first of all our properties have been built using timber frame, and we've tried to make as many as possible M42 compliant. So under building regs, it means that they are able to be easily adapted in the future. So things like making sure if a hoist did go into the property, that there's sufficient kind of load bearing within the structure to allow that. We've done that with all our bungalows, all our ground floor flats as well, and some of our 3 and 2 bedroom properties. So it is something we are very mindful of as well. And we also build all our properties to nationally defined space standards, that because otherwise you're not able to actually install some of the equipment which is required under M42 compliance. We can't do it with all our properties because some of our property types aren't suitable to do that. But where we can, we will. And again, it's a kind of unique selling point for Cornell.
Thank you, Councillor Ebbs.
So thank you very much for obviously for answering all our questions. So just as a complete outsider, newly put on the board, could you provide a little bit of context into the history? How long has this partnership been taking place? When was it set up? Just a bit of a backstory to give us a bit of narrative behind it.
Yeah, of course. So the company was set up in 2019 by Shropshire Council. I joined the organisation as managing director in February 2020. and we all know what happened in March 2020. So it was a bit of a challenging period, to say the least. And then during that time, what we've done is work closely with the local authority to kind of identify a number of regeneration sites that would be suitable for housing and a mixed portfolio of housing as well. If I'm honest with you, because the chair has been on that journey with us in quite a bit of detail, it has been quite a challenge during that period. We've had, difficulties in relation to COVID. We've had inflation challenges, which has seen a lot of contractors, taken out of the market because of, the costs associated with building homes post-COVID as well. We've had a cost of living crisis as well. So we've had to be really careful in terms of the type of homes we've built, the level of sales risk we've exposed ourselves to, and also in relation to some of the other kind of external challenges that Shropshire Council as a whole has felt. But what we've always tried to do in terms of the board and the Housing Supervisory Board and the wider council working with Cornovi is to not try and take our eye off the ball in terms of what we're about, which was around developing kind of difficult sites and looking at a mixed tenure approach with different types of housing solutions. We completed our first development in September 2021, and subsequent developments were then completed in 2023 and 2024. We started on our largest site, London Road, and I believe that was started in, it all blurs into one sometimes, but December 2023, and that's the site we're on at the moment. What we're also doing, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail, is that we've also been looking at a number of complex sites that, for whatever reason, has not moved forward from the council, and we've been working in partnership with the council to secure planning, deal with a lot of the technical issues on site, and that can be everything from complex drainage issues through to land ownership issues, through to site contamination issues. And we've also done a lot of work with the local authority to secure funding through things such as One Public Estates funding. A lot of that's now moved to the West Midlands Combined Authority. But what I'm really happy to do is we did do a bit of which I missed on this slide deck, is to pull forward as a timeline for the company around when we appointed the board, when we were set up, when we sold our first house, and our kind of different sites we started and completed, and we could share that to everyone afterwards if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic if you could just provide a bit of backstory. One final question, just to give myself a sort of understanding. Apologies for those who are more experienced than me, perhaps you might know the answer. How big of a scale of development are we talking? How many homes? And what's the sort of size of the property portfolio?
So in total, we have built 124 sites. Sorry, 124 homes to date, not sites. Yeah. We have on site at the moment 84 homes on our London Road site, with the balance to be developed shortly, but once we've kind of taken forward the existing sites. And we've got 2 live planning applications, which is for 386 homes. And in the background, we're working on a further approximately 220 homes for development. So it is quite a substantial kind of portfolio of properties we are working on. But I keep on re-emphasising this point, the sites that we are working on are really challenging regeneration sites. All sites are challenging in their own way, but constrained sites and ones that normally will take some sort of external intervention and funding to move forward. And I hope once we do the site tour, it'll give you a bit of a view of what we're doing and how we've kind of moved things forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. How many, Harpreet, out of the 120, sorry, it was 124 homes?
Yes.
How many are occupied at this time? Do you know? All of them?
Minus 2. Yeah.
And how long have they been vacant for?
Those properties have been vacant for about 12 months.
Are they affordable housing?
They are.
Through Star Housing, I'd assume?
Through the council, yeah, through the council. But the issue has been the transfer of those properties, but that is going to be resolved tomorrow. So those will all be occupied at that point.
One final question: can we get the figures in terms of like the operating profit, of course, each financial year?
Yeah, we'll circulate that through our accounts and get that across to you.
I'm just wondering. I'm asking this in the meeting. We haven't discussed it before. And I'm just wondering if we should set aside a couple of hours to do a briefing. If we could arrange that in the diary, because I think then people can ask as many questions as they like without any fear that we might overrun on time, because it's a complicated matter, isn't it? And that everybody's got many questions.
Yeah.
I was wondering why you weren't going to do that actually.
Yep.
Because I know I was here at the beginning. This is what I was telling you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I came to the first meeting that was ever discussed because they wanted to know our opinion from all over the county. But we still don't have enough. We haven't got hardly any of your homes in the south end. And now I'm being told it's because they've got difficulty with pollution, is it?
That's right, yeah, nutrient neutrality, yeah.
Yes.
Real.
So, you know, I didn't know that.
Yes.
It would be nice just to have somebody that would go through what has been happening all these years and understand why you're asking for £1 million. You know.
I'm not asking for £1 million today. I can give you that reassurance.
But, you know, I mean, I'm one of these people, I'm afraid I'm an old school, that I always like to know where the money's going.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's arrange a briefing, and then we can just look at the more detail in the wider sort of setting, so that everyone's got background information as well as current information. I think that will really help us going forward.
If you could just put a map on where the exact estates are, the details of the portfolio, rather than just the stats as well, because then it provides us a bit more context.
Yeah, I think there's some of that in the reports to come, isn't there?
Yeah, and also within the presentation as well. I'm just mindful, Chair, of time.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Do you want me to run through the rest of the presentation?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
yeah.
Excellent.
Perhaps we could try and go a bit quicker.
I will do, yeah. So
knowing that we're going to get our questions answered.
Yeah. So I won't go over this slide, but it's just a brief introduction of CDL, but also as part of my role, I'm also Managing Director for Star Housing. And one of the things we're really keen on is kind of making sure that the two Shropshire housing companies work better together, because I think we've done some good work, but I think there's some better work we can do in the future. And then these are the sites that we've completed. Sorry, it was 126. And as you can see there, there's a mixed portfolio. It's 49 open market, 38 private rented, and 39
Awesome. Please.
No.
Single though.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think. Thank you. And this is where we are up to in terms of London Road. The next slide, just giving you again a kind of view of where we're up to. And we've recently kind of released properties on that site for sale. We've got a number of bungalows there, and there's a number of first options that have now been taken up, and reservations. We've got 8, and we're doing a bit of a soft relaunch in a few weeks as well to kind of drum up some interest. But one of the key challenges for the organisation is, and will remain, kind of the challenging sales market. And it's something we're really focused on at the moment.
So are you telling me that you haven't been able to sell all the open markets, so that you're renting in there?
No, we've always said that we wanted a mixed portfolio of properties. And there is, if you look at the different models for housing companies, we've got a kind of mixed approach. We want to do more affordable, we want to do market sale, and we also want to do private rented sector housing as well, because there's a real gap within Shropshire. And that's our kind of focus as an organisation. But the benefits for the council in relation to private rented sector housing, and this has been proven by the new place example, which is what Telford are doing at the moment, is around kind of capital growth and also that revenue generation that comes in. So we are very much focused on that mixed portfolio of properties. And I think what's important, because every company has a shelf life. It might be 10 years, it might be 15 or 20, but if you've got a portfolio of properties that are bringing in a long-term revenue stream, it will only benefit the council, especially one which has capital growth associated with it. And then this gives you a bit of an overview in terms of our kind of planning position at the moment. And one of the things I just kind of want to emphasize really is that while our business plan shows a smaller percentage of affordable housing and private rented sector housing, we always are very cautious with our business plan. And we're always looking to increase the percentage of affordable housing and private rented sector housing as well, on the basis that the numbers work and we can kind of make these schemes move forward. So we'll talk a bit more in terms of our briefing on how we can achieve that moving forward. And that's the kind of overview of where we are and what we're trying to achieve at the moment across our sites. And there's some kind of further information. And I think for me, the key here is the time it's taking to sell properties from handover to completion. We're averaging about 20 weeks. You know, if you'd asked me that probably pre-pandemic, we could probably get that done in about 13 to 16 weeks. But we're finding it really hard, like most house builders, to get properties through the kind of conveyancing process and also the general process in terms of the sales and the chains that are occurring at the moment. So that's been a real issue for us. But in terms of renting properties, we can't build them fast enough. They're just going like hotcakes at the moment in terms of people wanting to move into private rented sector housing. And then there's a bit of a plan in terms of our sites and what we're working on across the county, but that also includes the sites that we're working on with Star Housing as well.
Great, thank you, Harpreet.
Okay, I'm going to touch on the business plan and finances now. Yeah,
sorry.
So I know that question kind of came up. So
okay,
I think firstly we've got access to 2 loans from the council. The first one at £39 million for development activity. The second one to purchase private rented sector homes, which is £30 million. The development loan is on a 10-year rolling credit facility. The PRS loan is for a period of 50 years. I think the point I want to make as well is that the company is 100% debt funded. So there's no equity coming into the company from the local authority. And our interest rate for development is at the moment about 7.6%, and it's been quite high. It's been between 7 and 8.5% during the life of the company. And in terms of our PRS interest rate, which is slightly lower, which is at about 5%. And that's something that's market tested. The methodology for the company's interest rate is linked to the EU base rate interest rate. The reassurance I can give everyone is we don't come up with a methodology. That's undertaken by the council. So if you're going to ask me to explain it, I'm going to have to hand over to somebody else. But we just pay the interest. Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Tandy.
Yeah, I know it's 39 million and the 30 million for the private rented sector.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are paying back a substantial amount of money at the end of this year, which isn't money.
I'm going to get to that slide if that's okay. The complete breakdown. Yeah, and I'll kind of work that through as well. Yeah. So you've seen within our kind of business plan, we've got 582 units being built across 7 schemes, and we do a confidence rating as well. That has evolved and changed because when we did the business plan, we normally get it finalised in January. We're now in June, so we're moving things over at a bit of pace. Ross, I'm going to ask you to explain the way in which we're calculating the shareholder return. Have you got a copy of the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to put it onto the next one with the benefits?
Which one, the shareholder return or the overall benefits?
I think that one. I'll start with the share. So go back one. Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of the shareholder return, it's there's a number of different elements to it. Initially, everybody thinks about the profit element, but in actual fact, that is a very, very, very small amount, and it's at the very bottom of the bar chart on the right. So those 2 bar charts on the left, if we look at the one on the right, this is what we're forecasting in the plan going forwards that the company will return to Shropshire Council. So it's quite small for me too, so let me increase that. You'll see that a large proportion of the cash returns that we make are in relation to capital receipts. So this is where CDL is actually purchasing land from the council, and then that cash is going back into the council for those purchases. The lime green section is in the interest payments that we make
for the loan that we're advanced, so the 7.5% that we talked about earlier that we're paying back to the council for the benefit of borrowing that money. And then the section at the top is the same interest payments against the PRS loan that we're borrowing against. So there's cash flows always heading back to the council for those different elements going through. And the profit element is just a very small element, because overall we don't operate at really big profit margins. That's one of the benefits of the company, is that we're not trying to make big profit margins. The benefits come out in many other different ways. Additionally to those cash flows going back to the council, throughout the years we've also added 10.2 million of value to our own balance sheet, which of course the council owns, and that's because we're holding those PRS rental assets on the balance sheet as well. So if you go on to the next slide, please. This just gives you, when you can see it up close, it just gives you a breakdown of when those cash receipts have come back to the council to date. So at the end of the last financial year, we had returned a total of £13 million back to the council. And by the end of this year, we're forecasting to return £26 million in total. And then over the life of the plan, as it said on the previous one, much more in the region of £34 million. So that's going back, whilst also paying back the principal of the loan that we're borrowing all the time. This is where we have this sort of revolving action on the loan. And then the final slide. Yeah, so that has grown. So we originally, we started with a £14 million loan. That was the very beginning of the company. And it's now a revolving loan, which has a 10-year time frame. So we have access to that fund for 10 years. We don't always borrow it. This graph here shows you when we draw down on it. So we're increasingly drawing down on it as the growth of the business continues. And then as we, as the projects close and we cash in those profits off those individual projects, then we're repaying that principal, and it's weaving back into the loan. So it's like a cyclical loan arrangement.
Yeah.
So you can see here in the dark line how we predict to borrow. So that will tell you that we'll be borrowing quite significantly up until I can't.
December 27.
Yeah, that's it. So small. I do apologise. Yeah, up until October 27, that's when we'll achieve our peak debt, as the business plan is forecasting at the moment, and then it will unwind from there, depending on what activity we then decide to take forward, because we will reassess that at every annual point, and we produce a new business plan and then a new assumption about how we'll borrow going forwards.
And for me, it's just some of the key opportunities and risks. I think the big thing for me is there's good market opportunities out there at the moment, especially with some of the work that the local authority is doing, and just some of the kind of challenges associated with some of those sites in relation to kind of potential external funding. There's a real focus on housing at the moment. There's a push around regeneration sites as well. You know, there's a real view that we should be looking to make best use of brownfield sites and regen sites. And surprisingly enough, we do have quite a lot in Shropshire. You know, farmland. A classic example is the Oswestry Shrewsbury Road site we're currently looking at. It was a former prisoner of war camp. The most contaminated site in Shropshire, because when it was demolished, it was full of asbestos, and then the asbestos was ploughed through a field for a number of years, decades. So that's you know, something that we're going to have to work really hard at. But there is a lot of good regeneration sites in the centre of different towns, and also on some of our farmland that's just not being used. But we would need to get external funding to help us to do that, because the market would not intervene.
Councillor Tandy.
Yeah, thank you. I'm interested in all your figures, but what are your operating costs? In other words, your operating costs on a day-to-day basis, you've got 280 staff. So all that operating costs of how much that actually costs the council before we get our profits. So I'd be very interested to know what the operating costs are for the company.
So in terms of staff directly undertaking CDL Cornelvie work, I think in terms of full-time posts, I think it's something like 4.5 members of staff, because I'm shared, Ros is shared, and so are the development team. The people who are actually doing the full-time work is actually our sales team. So there is not a large team within Cornelvie at this time, but we will come back and confirm the latest operating costs for you, if that's okay. So Star Housing is a different operation to Cornelvie. Cornelvie is a very small team. and we've always made it that way due to the point that we don't want a large team and having a large overhead associated with the organisation, especially with the instability and challenges associated with the sales market. Yeah.
So the 280 staff are most of them with Star Homes, and then a very small amount with Corville Homes.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep. So it's 164 members of staff at Star Housing.
Yeah.
And about 4.5 of those members of staff work full time on Cornell projects. We've got 4.5 people.
4.5 staff.
Yeah.
That's all on Corville.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
But I was just going to talk about the risks actually, because there is some really difficult emerging risks for the organisation. There's a complex planning process. Every planning application that we're doing is not taking months; it's taking years, and it's a similar story across the county. And so, it's something that we're kind of really focused on to make sure we move things forward in a more streamlined way. And we've had some really good support from our planning colleagues, but we understand some of the pressures that they're under and some of the additional regulations that they need to respond to as well, whether it's BNG, whether it's some of the kind of drainage and other things strategy. So that's been a real challenge for us. There's
planning for all these houses.
They're the planning authority.
Right. Must make some difficulties. When everything comes up that isn't right, people object to.
It's the same for everybody, isn't it? Who wants to put planning in with the planning authority, and we have to.
Yeah, so there's that
separate. We have to work with it.
Yeah, and there's a clear separation of duty between the.
I've been here a long time.
I know that.
But no,
I won't repeat because there's people here. But I remember quite a while ago that something wasn't right, and it makes it very difficult for staff and everybody.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, and I think the part for me is that all of our planning applications, because of that link with the local authority, can't be decided by an officer. It has to go to planning committee. And so what that means is that, from a planning perspective, there's more emphasis on us getting it right as well as we can do, because there's additional scrutiny, and quite rightly so. So that is why everything we've referred to planning committee, and we've put planning applications in, and the committee has not been happy, and we've gone away and worked on them. So it's important we get that right. But you're completely right; it does take a.
Councillors for those areas, they still have to go out of the room. They're not allowed to.
That's correct, but they can speak in support or against.
Yes, that's it.
There's been a real uncertainty with funding, and just the general kind of, we've talked about the complex, but also the planning process as well. There's been a lot of new regulation and changes during that period, and where we get external funding from, how we can move that forward, and what that means from a practical perspective. We've all talked about the challenging market conditions, but the final part for me is the kind of inflation, interest rates and limited land supply issue as well, because whilst Shropshire is a green county, many of the sites that have been identified for housing do have a lot of kind of difficult constraints associated with rural development, so that's been a bit of a challenge as well. And the final part is, as I've... Yeah. Yeah, but for me, I think what's really important is we've got to kind of pull a presentation. There's a lot of information here and a lot of information in terms of the historic work that we've undertaken, but we're really keen to kind of onboard all members. So myself, the vice chair who's stepping into the chair role, Chris, and Roz is keen to meet with everybody either as a group or individually. We'd really like to take you around all of our developments in terms of a site tour. We'd like to invite everybody, which we have done previously on the Housing Supervisory Board, for all our different kind of events as well, such as the launch of our Help to Own product, and also to arrange a CDL away day with the board and the Housing Supervisory Board as well, and kind of discuss some of these kind of key areas that we've been working on. So apologies, a lot of detail there, but I thought it was important that we just give a bit of a stock tour of the company, and I'm sure there's more questions than answers at this point, but we're happy to kind of come back further.
Great, thanks everyone. Thanks for the questions on that. So we will as said, arrange a briefing so we can really sort of understand things even more. So we're now going to move on to item 7, which is a limited update report from Jenny Daisley. Over to you, Jenny.
Right, so I'll go through an overview, but take the report as read, and then myself and my colleagues can answer any questions. So the purpose of the public report is to update the Housing Supervisory Board on the progress against a 10-year business plan as of the end of March 2025. So the key highlights were CDL remains on track to deliver 582 homes over the planned period, with 21% forecast as affordable housing. To date, 39 affordable homes have been completed and 27 more and 2 specialist units in progress. So some of the completed and live schemes, we have Ifton Heath, which is completed on 13 affordable homes, which were sold to Connexus Housing Group. 2 LAF homes, which have been delivered and are now got tenants in. Ellesmere Wharf completed 4 LAF homes, delivered 2 S106 bungalows to be acquired which are being acquired by Star Housing, and those should be completed on Friday, tomorrow. No, LAF is the local. Go on, Laura. Sorry.
Local Authority Housing Fund. So it was external government funding that we were given that we were able to use. Yeah.
I apologise, shouldn't. The Oaklands has completed 4 on the LAF homes delivered, 2 bungalows, and they're pending legal completion. And they, again, should be complete in the next 2-3 weeks. London Road's in progress, and we've got 12 PRS homes, 10 more pending, 27 affordable homes to be acquired by the council through Star Housing. So it's a total from current schemes of 249 units, 133 market sale, 68 affordable, and 48 private rent. Climate performance is the next part of the report, and all developments meet or exceed EPC targets with notable carbon savings, with the use of photovoltaic panels and overheating mitigation measures across sites. Flood risk assessments confirm no significant risks across all developments. Social value, CDL continues to meet board set targets for local contractor investment, employment training opportunities, and support for educational settings. And CDL performance is monitored by the Council's Homes and Community Team and the CDL Monitoring Board. The Housing Supervisory Board is asked to formally receive this quarterly update in line with the shareholder agreement. Any questions?
So Dandy.
Thank you. I see you've got 2 specialist accommodation. Where are they and what are they?
Yeah, they're based on London Road. So they are 2 bungalows, and they have been commissioned for 2 of our learning disability clients.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Shelley, do we need to vote on this? Or yeah, general agreement. Okay, so we're noting that report. Is everybody happy with that? And we're moving on. Thank you. Where am I moving on to? Thank you. Yeah, so now we're going to exclude the press and public for the exempt part of the meeting. So we'll be ending the live stream. We'll just wait for that to happen.